Now let's bring in the man you're used to watching at this hour, your regular host James Morrow, who's joining us from Boston. James, good to have you with me. Oh my God, how do you describe what we watched?
Oh, Caleb, I mean, this was such an absolute disaster that, I'm supposed to be on holiday, and yet I had to come back in and talk to everybody about just what an absolute mess that was. Look, Caleb, I don't know how anybody can look at what happened and see that that is anything but an unmitigated disaster. Even the most partisan Democrat commentators I know are all saying there is simply no way that the Democrats can win with Joe Biden. They have to do something. So, the great problem here that they have is that they've enforced this whole reality around Joe Biden being absolutely fine, and that anything to the contrary that says he's not fine is just misinformation, and it's all just, cheap fakes and all of that sort of thing. And now they've got to back down from that, or they're in a position where they're faced with either backing down from the whole regime that they've put up around Joe Biden to protect him, or going forward with a candidate who will absolutely lose to a man, Donald Trump, who the Democrats say is also an existential threat to freedom, to democracy, to the United States, to everything. So the Democrats have painted themselves into a massive corner here, and I think we realize just how bad it is for them tonight.
Well, I mean, when Biden tried to get in there on Trump, he failed so badly. I mean, you got the morals of an alley cat. What a great line. And then, of course, he started talking about his golf handicap.
I got my handicap, which when I was vice president, down to a 6. But by the way, I told you before, I'm happy to play golf if you carry your own bag.
I mean, you talk about cheap fakes. I mean, we got a whole night of cheap fakes tonight.
Well, Caleb, I mean, this is, extraordinary for a number of reasons, not the least of which is here. This may be the first time a politician has boasted that he had so much free time while he was in office, this time as vice president, that he was able to get his golf handicap down into the single figures. And then, of course, he went from saying, oh, no, wait, actually, it was 6. No, maybe it was an 8. Again, he wasn't quite sure of the facts there. I mean, that was just sort of just the icing on the cake of this whole bizarre thing. That segment kind of felt like a mix of Caddyshack meets Grumpy Old Men.
Indeed. But when Trump went on Biden, he actually landed a few blows, and we showed the clip before of him saying, look, I don't think Biden knows what he just said. He also compared Biden to Palestinians.
He said the only one who wants to keep going is Hamas. Actually, Israel is the one, and you should let him go and let him finish the job. He doesn't want to do it. He's become like a Palestinian.
There were moments watching the debate where I was just like, no, make it stop. Biden is being literally mauled on live television. Trump just kept shooting him.
Well, yeah, but that's the thing, though. I kind of felt like on that whole issue of Iran and Hamas and Israel, I kind of felt like actually Trump left a fair bit of gas in the tank there on that one, because, he could have gone a little bit further with explaining the real total way. He kind of spoke in a shorthand that spoke to people like you and me and a lot of our viewers out there who follow this stuff day in and day out and know what he's talking about with Iran and the sanctions and the money. But he really could have spelled out an even more damning case against Biden, who has just been continuing the Obama foreign policy, which has been to empower Iran, to give Iran money, to hope they'll play nice, that they'll balance the Middle East. And of course, we've had the complete apocalyptic disaster of October 7th and everything else that happened after that. So I actually thought that Trump's attacks could have even been sharper on some of these things.
Well, it's $100-odd billion, right, that the US has given to Iran under the Biden presidency.
Well, it's more than that. I mean, it's not only, money given directly to Iran by unfreezing bank accounts that were frozen after the 1979 revolution, which is, of course, the great folly of the Jimmy Carter administration and something that we're still paying for absolutely today, but also releasing sanctions, treating Iran's nuclear program as something that's all completely legitimate, and basically seeking to empower Iran and to let them be treated like a normal civilized country rather than a theocratic malocracy that imprisons, beats, tortures, and abuses its own people while it imposes a theocratic rule and tries to dominate the entire Middle East. Remember, Trump had a great thing going on in the Middle East with the Abrams Accords and bringing Israel and the Sunni states together. And of course, Obama hated that. Biden hated that as Obama's proxy on this stuff. And it's been, a predictable disaster ever since.
Now, Biden was asked whether Trump voters were anti-democratic. Have a look at his answer.
Do you believe that the tens of millions of Americans who are likely to vote for President Trump will be voting against American democracy?
The more they know about what he's done, yes. The more they know about what he's done.
So he's actually saying that if you go and cast your Democratic vote in a Democratic election, you're voting against democracy because you voted for the other guy and not for me.
Caleb, this is the thing that we're seeing in the United States, but frankly, we're also seeing it in other countries around the world. This tendency to say that we have to preserve democracy, although usually the phrase that they talk about and use is our democracy, which kind of draws a border around it. It says anybody who votes for the wrong candidate is against democracy. And this is this great rhetorical trick. And it was almost, if Biden hadn't had such a shocker throughout the rest of the debate, that very well could have been his deplorables moment. That could have been the moment where Trump says, hey, look, apparently if you exercise your vote and don't vote the right way, you're against democracy. Well, why don't you show them what democracy is really about? That would have been a great walk-up start for Trump to take that as a takeaway out of that debate. But there were so many other complete catastrophes, in that debate that there's just no way that even kind of burbled through. So I'm glad you highlighted it.
Yeah, when I heard it, I just thought that how can you suggest that voting in a democratic election for someone who is not you is anti-democratic? It's the very basis of democracy. Before we go, James, what do you think the likelihood is now that the Democratic candidate we see running against Trump in November is not Joe Biden?
Look, I have been saying that on this program for well over a year now. So for me, it's approaching almost a near certainty. I would say we're certainly at least 2/3 of the way to that possibility. And the thing I would say, Caleb, is if you go and look at the way CNN, the New York Times, everybody who talks to senior Democrats and big-time, big-money donors is talking right now, it feels like there is almost a coordinated full court press on. Normally you would say after a Democrat debate that didn't go Biden's way, they would still say, oh yeah, look, let's fact check Trump and he's the real bad guy here. No, all of the commentary out of the left is this is an unmitigated disaster and we have to do something to stop the bleeding. My money, they're not going to go with a Gavin Newsom. I'm reckoning either a Gretchen Whitmer or an Amy Klobuchar, somebody like that. Leaves still, of course, the Kamala Harris problem, but I guess that's an issue for tomorrow, not today.
Yeah, indeed. Look, a conspiracy theorist might suggest that the whole point of the debate was for Biden to shoot him in the foot, so they had an excuse to get rid of him. James Morrow, thank you for your time.